Best friend told my parents that I lost my V card because she was jealous. 2 months ago, I started dating a new guy at our high school. He was the new guy in school and every girl wanted to be with him, including my best friend. Now, before this, my best friend and I had never had any problems between us. She never showed herself to be envious or jealous of me, so I trusted her. And I literally told this girl everything. The new guy started showing me a lot of attention. He followed me on Instagram and DM'd me right away. Apparently, I reminded him of his ex, who he was obsessed with. One morning, my best friend and I are hanging out before class starts. The new guy walks up to us, says good morning to us both, and then asks me if he could talk to me privately. That's when my best friend says, "You can talk in front of me. I'm her best friend and she trusts me." So then he proceeded to ask me out in front of her. The look on her face was terrifying. She was so pissed off. Of course I said yes and he walked away. That's when my best friend said, "Oh my god, he's kinda ugly. Did you smell his breath? It stinks really bad. Why would you ever go out with that guy?" Then she says, "You better not go out with him." Her too. When she said, "You better not go out with him or I'll tell your parents." I looked at her and said, "You wouldn't dare." She's like, "You're right, I wouldn't." By the way, my parents were very strict. They'd never let me go out on dates, much less have a boyfriend. The weekend comes around and I'm getting prepared for my date. So I told my parents that I was going to be with my best friend the entire weekend. And of course they believe me. I send her a text message saying, "Hey, I told my parents I'm going to be with you. So if they ask you, you got to cover for me." She says, "Of course I will." I go on the date with the new guy and it was so much fun. For the first time ever, I was treated like a girl. He held my hand, he was kissing my neck, and he paid for everything. Like I said, up until that point, I'd never really had an experience like that. So I was falling for him quick. We'd gone to watch a movie and at the movie theater, he started kissing me. Of course, I kissed him back. That's when he asked me if I wanted to go back to his house because his parents weren't home. And I said yes. As we're driving to his house, I was so excited. So I texted her out of excitement telling her that I was going to be going back to his house. She replied and told me that I was a slut and that I was being too easy. She even asked me to send her a picture of what I was wearing, which I did. Then she replied, "You'd look like a slut." Then we got to his house and we started making out again. Part 3 is up. That's when we started doing the dirty in his room. All while my best friend is slut-shaming me. Could hear her messages come in as we're on his bed. I grab my phone and silence it and see that I have about 20 text messages from her. I read the first one and it said, "You better not be effing him right now, or I will tell your parents." But of course I ignored them. I was doing it with this guy. But to be honest, it ended pretty quickly. As I'm getting dressed, he says, "Do you need me to drop you off at your best friend's, or can you stay and have dinner with me?" This boy was trying to cook me dinner. Of course I said yes. I text my best friend and tell her, "Why are you being so mean?" I told her that nothing happened, but she wouldn't believe me. That's when I told her that he was going to make me dinner at his house, and this is when she got even angrier. She said, "Why is he making you dinner? What did you do to have to get that dinner?" I told her nothing and she wouldn't leave me alone. That's when she started calling my phone. Of course I didn't answer. 3 minutes later, I get a call from my mom. I answered right away and pretended to be at my best friend's. And that's when my mom told me that my best friend called her and told her the truth. So I couldn't lie anymore. Took me to my parents' house and they were furious. My parents told this boy that he has to marry me. He literally ran away. I ran out of time. Part 4 will be up soon.
My wife asked me to choose between my mom and her, and I think I'm gonna divorce her. A little background. My mom and dad were both orphans. My dad died 2 weeks before I was born. My mom didn't really have a support system, so we were just the two of us. I never lacked for anything because my mother worked all of her life to give me the life that I have today, and didn't have time for herself to start a new life again. She did all the little jobs possible so that we didn't miss anything. She deprived herself of food to give me food. I had very good clothes while she had none. I saw her make sacrifices again and again, and always with a smile. Frankly, I always thought that she was an angel dressed in a human body. The only time she yelled at me was when I was 16, when I saw her getting sick and working at the same time. But she was angry and told me it was not my job to take care of her, and it was up to her to take care of me. She wanted me to get really good grades and get into the best universities. It's the only way I can protect myself when she can't anymore. Even at university, she didn't want me to work. I had to be focused on my studies. But she wanted me to volunteer so that I could be an adult who could do something with his hands. My wife and I met there while we both volunteered. My wife is a good person, but she was never close to her parents or her siblings. Yet she adored my mother since she met her. There were times when I thought that she loved my mother more than she loved me, and we laughed about it. Deep down, I think she was looking for the bond between mother and daughter that she did not have from her mother. When I finished my studies, I found a job, we moved in together, but she wasn't comfortable that I called my mom every day. Remind you, those are 10 to 15 minute calls. But eventually she stopped bringing it up. 2 years later, I bought a house for my mom. Because we never had a house in our name. We lived from apartment to apartment. So for all the sacrifices she made, it was for me the least of it, and it was non-negotiable. That's when the problem started with my wife, then girlfriend. She wanted me to think about us first. I told her that my dream had always been to buy my mom a house since I was little, and that's what I had to do. But she complained about it to my mom. My mom didn't even know that I bought a house for her, as it was supposed to be a surprise for her birthday. She was uncomfortable of receiving the house because of my wife, and told me that it wasn't necessary that we could use it for us when we get married. I was furious. I told my mother that the house was for her and she could do with it whatever she wanted, but it was time for her to think about herself first. Our relationship survived that. We got married and then we had our own house. Our life was going well until 2 months ago when my mother fell ill. I wanted her to come and live with us so that I could take care of her, but my wife didn't want to. I then decided to rent an apartment with my own money right next to our house so that I could be closer and go there to take care of her. But even that idea didn't sit well with my wife. Me and my wife don't have children yet. We both work. I usually come home at 6 p.m. But since my mother is sick, I go to see her and then come home around 8 p.m. On weekends, I see her for about 1 or 2 hours, and then the rest of the time I spend with my wife. We go on dates and I always accompany her in her hobbies even though she never went to mine. 2 days ago, she told me that she thought about it and she thinks that I prioritize my mom way too much. She told me that I have to choose between my mother and the life that I want to build with her. The truth is that I've never made her feel that way. We both work, but I'm the one who cooks, and I pay a person to do the housework. I make sure I make the dishes that she likes. She didn't even know what I like to eat because I never complain. I run her baths, give her massages, flowers, write her poems that I hide somewhere in the house for her to find out. We go on a trip 1 week in a month. I earn much more money than her. I told her to keep her money for herself, and I take care of all the bills, even hers. I always make sure to listen to her and consider her opinion. And I think that I'm easygoing because I can change my mind to accommodate hers. But I realize that she tries completely to dominate me, and the only subject where I don't give her a choice is my relationship with my mother. Am I in the wrong for emailing my fiance's dad about her DNA results? I, 35 male, secretly emailed my fiance's 31 female biological father, who is adopted and has no links to his real family, to inform him that his family had been found through her 23andMe test results. 3 years ago, she bought 23andMe tests for us, her parents, mom and stepdad, and my parents. This was a deeply meaningful gift because my 5 older brothers have tormented me all my life with claims that I was adopted or that our dad wasn't my dad since I don't look like anyone else in the family. I'm tall with red hair, so it really healed an old wound to get definitive proof that our parents are both my parents. What we weren't expecting was for the results of her biological father's family to show up. She wasn't expecting to find many familial connections because she's first-generation American. Initially, there was a third cousin connection on her paternal side, and over the last couple of years, it's grown into a practical family tree. I knew that she had stopped speaking to her dad over 10 years ago because the most he did for her was sporadically remember to call her on her birthday. She explained her reasons for not wanting to give him the information, but that honestly didn't sit well with me. I tracked down her dad's email address in her contacts list and sent him a list of his known relatives. I completely forgot about it until her mom saw a social media post about him finding his family and told my fiance. She was very emotional as she told me about the phone call with her mom, but said she was happy for him. She made a comment about how we didn't have anything to do with it, so I confessed to what I had done. She was furious, and this has created a major issue in our relationship. Am I in the wrong for sending her dad, who's adopted, her test results that identify his biological family?
Am I the asshole for calling my fiance a effing embarrassment? I've been seeing my fiance for 4 years now and came into the relationship with 2 boys. They're 12 and 9, and once a year me and the boys go to my family's vacation home with the entire family, and up until this year my fiance did not attend. But now that we're engaged in merging families, the family asked that he come too. I explained to him prior that during our stay with the family, my kids do not have a bedtime. We do a lot of night activities like swimming in the pool, karaoke, fires, nightly strolls, and so on. I explained that some nights they're up until 11 to midnight and it's once a year and no big deal. Am I the asshole for calling him a effing embarrassment? First night he was stressing because the boys were in the pool at 10 p.m. and he felt they should be in bed already. I reminded him we're not enforcing a bedtime here and he let it go the first night. The second night the boys were up at 9 p.m. and he said you're lucky you're even still awake right now and you should be in bed, in front of my mom, who looked mortified. I told him to stop in private, but he said it's gonna mess with their schedules, but I stood for him and told him to knock it off. Well, last night, my fiance started getting angry, sighing every time he looks at my kids still awake, and I finally pulled him aside. I called him an embarrassment because he keeps doing it in front of my family, and if he can't control it for a week, he should leave. Am I the asshole for telling my husband he ruined my birthday again? So today is my 28th birthday, and I'm really into birthdays and holidays and believe in celebrating them to the max. I'm the planner and the giver in my family and also my extended family. So I plan birthdays, get-togethers, gifts, travel, all that. I'm also a stay-at-home mom due to having a son with complex medical and behavioral needs. I've been with him 24/7 for the last week as it's school break and he's extremely clingy. And I also had a respiratory cold during this time and still kept up with my duties. My husband's birthday was last month and as usual I planned something for him. Now for my birthday I wanted help with the kids, and am I the asshole for telling my husband he ruined my birthday again? For my birthday I told him I just wanted help with the kids, the house cleaned, a nap, and him to cook supper or take me out. And maybe a homemade gift and a cake. Yesterday he started complaining of a sore throat, but everything looked fine and he stayed up playing video games. This morning he says he's sick but has no visible symptoms and stayed up on Xbox Live talking just fine. Slept all day, but I think it's because he stayed up playing games. Meanwhile, I make my own cake, take care of the kids, and do my chores. He didn't even tell me happy birthday. So I went over to my parents and he called and asked why. I said he ruined my birthday and he said I'm an adult and birthdays aren't a big deal after 21. Am I the asshole for not wanting to be driven around by women, including my girlfriend? When I, 27 male, was a kid, I had a traumatic experience and was in a car accident. It was in the school bus, which was being driven by a lady, and since then I've had a phobia of being a passenger in a vehicle being driven by a woman. My mom did not drive, and even when my older sister learned how to drive, I refused to drive with her even though my other siblings did. I do have my license but not a car, and when I take public transit, I also take the next bus if a woman is driving. And this is a phobia, and I do not think women should not drive or anything. Am I the asshole for not wanting to be driven around by women, including my girlfriend? This is a phobia, and I do not think women should not drive. Recently, my girlfriend and I moved in together, and she has a car. She's pretty upset with me as whenever we go out, I insist on driving her car. She says it feels like I'm a misogynist when it's just a phobia. I said I'd be okay taking public transportation and she could drive her car and we could travel separate, but she thinks that's not a solution and I should get over it. So I just really need to know, am I wrong? It's not like I'm telling her she can't drive, and I apply this rule to everyone. I also told her she was free to ask my parents about my past. Am I the asshole for not adopting my dying best friend's dog and buying a puppy from a breeder instead? My best friend is dying of cancer and could pass away any moment. Today, I was visiting and showed him a picture of the German Shepherd puppy I put a security deposit on and will be ready to take home in 4 weeks. I've always wanted a German Shepherd puppy, so I was so excited and showed him the pictures. I thought maybe the pictures would bring him at least a little moment of joy, even if the moment was fleeting. But instead, things got awkward. After a few minutes of awkwardness, I asked what was wrong. He said that his cousin who was supposed to take his 2-year-old pug named Horace could no longer take him. Am I the asshole for not adopting my dying best friend's dog and buying a puppy from a breeder instead? He said I could save a lot of money by taking his dog. I looked over at Horace and he looked back at me, or he tried to look at me, but he's got one wandering eye that pretty much is always looking towards the ceiling. But I could feel his glare with his good eye. Horace is not a good dog, and this is not me being rude. This is simply me knowing Horace. He poops in the house and tears stuff up, and he's always yapping. Meanie, I'm not a fan of pugs. They look like their faces have been hit with a shovel, and they're always gasping for air with their eyes bulging out. So I said no because I know he's not a good dog, and he got mad.
My husband has locked me out of our home thinking I cheated. If this wasn't happening to me, I would be laughing right now at the silliness of the whole thing. I can't believe the man I spent 5 years loving could so easily think I could cheat. We have been married for 2 weeks. On Monday, he got a call from his brother that his father hit their mother while backing up the driveway and that she broke her hip. She went into surgery and got hip replacement, and she was in pain. My husband left immediately to his parents and stayed there until Wednesday morning. They lived 4 hours away. When he came home around 8 a.m. on Wednesday, I was on my way out to work. He asked me why it smelled like cologne for men in our apartment and especially in our bedroom. I was confused and didn't know what he meant. I told him that I didn't know because I was running late and I left for work without further discussion. When I came back from work, he had already changed the locks. I tried to call and text, but his phone was off. I called my mom and she let me stay with her. I was so worried, so I called my brother-in-law and he told me that my husband was there, but that he didn't want to talk to me. Later, he texted me and said it was over between us. I asked what's going on and he told me that he knew I had been with the man while he was away, that I was disgusting for cheating on him in our bed when we were newly married. His mother was angry and she demanded that I give my wedding band back to them since it cost around $18,000. My mother-in-law also told me that they were going to start the annulment process and they would send me my clothes and the few items I brought with me since everything else was his. I texted my husband why would he even think of something that horrible from me, and he said that it was the cologne. My husband wears only one unisex perfume and it has a very distinctive smell and it wasn't his. I racked my brain trying to understand where the smell came from. I tried to explain that we had some warm nights and I had Part 2. My husband has locked me out of our home thinking I cheated. My mother-in-law from her 6-side bed made sure that everyone in our lives knew what I had done. My phone was never silent. My husband hates fish. The smell, the taste, everything, but especially the smell. That's why whenever my husband isn't around, I usually make fish for myself because I love seafood. On Monday, I made a pan-fried sunbeam, one of my favorite dishes. Our apartment is small and I try to hide the smell using scented wipes, the samples you get from buying makeup. I have a table fan in our bedroom and it's been on most of the time because of the heat. I thought it was smart to attach the wipes to the back of the fan. I got used to the smell and therefore didn't understand why my husband meant when he said he smelled cologne for men. I told him all this to make sure he believed me. I told him to look in the bathroom trash can for the packages and on the back of the fan for the wipes. On Friday morning, he was at my mom's house apologizing and begging me to go back home with him. Now I'm home and everything is supposed to be back to normal. but I have a very bad taste in my mouth. How could my husband, who I've been together with for 5 years, so easily think I'm capable of doing such horrible things to him and to myself? And his reaction, so strong and radical, just throw me out like a dog and shut me out, only contacting me via text, and his family not wasting a moment to bash me to the rest of his family. I'm hurt and disgusted, but overall I'm so fucking pissed.
Am I wrong for telling my sister I would say told you so if she gets cancer? I, female 27, enjoy motocross, and although I'm an amateur, I spend a lot of my time and money on it. My sister, female 31, has always kind of despised the sport. She says it's dangerous and I shouldn't be doing it because I'll get hurt. Well, 3 weeks ago, I fell on a jump and broke my ankle and shattered my knee. It is still unsure what kind of recovery I'll make, and I was and still kind of am mentally in a bad place as well. Like I said, I love drifting around on my motorcycle and would be devastated if I could never do it again. When my sister came to visit me at the hospital, the first thing she said was, "I told you this would happen." Am I wrong for telling my sister I would say I told you so if she gets cancer? The first thing my sister said was, "I told you this would happen." I was shocked by this, especially because she didn't say anything else after that. No empathy, no compassion at all. It almost seemed like she was happy to be proven right. Now, my sister has been smoking cigarettes for the past 14 years, and I've never said a thing about it, except for when she asked about it or tried to convince me of the benefits. So I replied with a nice response, "I'll remember it for when you get lung cancer." She got incredibly upset, called me a B-word, and left, and I haven't spoke to her since. But I've got some angry texts from my parents saying I crossed the line. Am I wrong for telling people not to eat the food at my sister's wedding? My husband and I got married 8 months ago and had a big wedding with lots of food and drinks. I knew we'd have leftovers, so arranged for them to be donated to the soup kitchen. However, my mom went behind my back and took most of it. And the thing is, I didn't really know what happened to it until now. My sister Callie got married over the weekend and didn't want to mess with any of the planning, and knowing how my mom was during my wedding, let her take over the whole thing. The ceremony was beautiful, but when the buffet was revealed, I noticed something odd. The food looked eerily familiar, like identical to what I had for my wedding, except for more dried out and sad. Am I wrong for telling people not to eat the food at my sister's wedding? When I asked my mom about it, she happily told me she saved a fortune by unfreezing the food from my wedding to serve to the guests now. I was horrified and immediately voiced my concerns about safety. She got upset and said I was acting like a snob and should be happy the food wasn't going to waste. I didn't want to make a scene but was worried about people getting sick, so snuck off to find my sister. She was horribly embarrassed and mentioned that mom said something about saving money, but she didn't question it, especially because she didn't want to foot the bill like I had. So me and my husband told guests to be wary of the food, and now my family's mad at me for making them look bad. Am I wrong? Am I wrong for kicking out my husband's aunt who criticized my bond with my cat after having a baby? Hey everyone, I found myself in need of some judgment since my family's divided, and I still think I'm not wrong. I'm a woman in my late 20s and I recently became a mother. Alongside my newfound role as a mom, I have a cherished cat whom I have always shared a deep bond with. Even after the arrival of my baby, I have made a point to continue involving my cat in our family life. We still go on little walks together around the garden, just the two of us, and I make sure to spend quality time snuggling and bonding with her. I also love how much my girl loves and cares for the baby. During a visit from my husband's family, his aunt decided to share their unsolicited opinion with me. My cat is really shy with people, so she was in my room looking through the window. When she wants my attention, she makes a particular meow. Well, my husband came and let me know she made the noise, so of course I went to go check on her. When I got back, his aunt started saying that having a baby and having a cat could be dangerous. Am I wrong for kicking my husband's aunt out of the house after she criticized my bond with my cat after having a baby? His aunt implied that I shift my focus away from my cat. She said that it was not natural and that I should just focus on my baby and that a cat is a cat. I told her to get out of my house now. She was astonished, and I told her it's extremely rude to go to other people's houses and start criticizing how they live, especially when we barely have a relationship and I've only seen you 3 times, including once at the wedding. She and her sister got out, and my husband told me I was right, but I was rude and could have said that in a better way. My sister-in-law, who was present, thinks I overreacted. I told my best friend and she's with me, but she also is a cat lover, so I don't know if it counts. There is a recent update, you guys, and it says, "I agree with y'all, I did overreact." I'm not going to try and justify myself. I need to learn better coping skills for the situations, and that's on the top of my list. She also says that she will apologize.
Am I the asshole for canceling my niece's college fund upon discovering what she's been doing to me and my wife for months? My wife and I have struggled with infertility for years. We're trying more options, but we're losing hope. I have a 16-year-old niece that is like a daughter and a friend to me. Considering I'm doing well financially, I've decided to take care of her education and start a college fund so she can attend a college of her choice. My brother and his wife, my niece's stepmom, are of course aware of that, and they are very appreciative. They always talk about what a generous, loving uncle I am, unlike my younger brother. I've been dealing with a series of unusual, unexplainable events, like receiving text messages at work from someone pretending to be my wife, informing me of some big news, like her being pregnant, or finding mysterious envelopes in my car when I'm at my parents' house, and the envelopes contained letters from someone also pretending to be my wife, again telling me she was pregnant. My wife and I had no idea who's been playing us like this. We knew it was someone close to us and had many that made our list of suspects, including my brother-in-law. Last week I was visiting my brother's house and my car was parked in their driveway. I was sitting with my brother and sister-in-law, but my niece left for a few minutes then returned. I finished my coffee, said goodbye, and left. While I was approaching my car, I noticed a sign on my windshield. I looked at it, read the sign, and it said I'm pregnant written largely. I was confused because I knew no one from this neighborhood and suspected someone who knew me did it. I took the sign and went back to my brother's to help me figure this out. Said someone must have left it on the wrong car, but I explained it happened before. He just shrugged, but my sister-in-law pointed at the sign and said that the writing style looked similar to my niece's. My brother told her to stop, but I called my niece to come downstairs and asked her. At first she denied it, but then got nervous and admitted to all of it. I blew up telling her that she was out of line to think mocking my wife and mine suffering and playing us for months was funny. I said I was mad, disappointed, and won't ever be looking at her the same. I informed her, my brother, and sister-in-law I officially was canceling the college fund I started for her due to her cruelty and disrespect for us. She broke down saying she meant no harm or disrespect and was just messing with us. My brother said I can't actually make this decision based on a small mistake my niece made. He said this is her future and that I was giving up on my decision will have a lasting impact. I cut the conversation and left. So, am I the asshole for canceling my niece's college fund upon discovering what she's been doing to my wife and I for months? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Am I the asshole for lying to my wife as a joke about what AWD means? My 27 male, wife 27 female is very into feminism, and I often joke about it and she doesn't seem to mind. Like, I believe in equality and all and don't criticize her view or anything. Well, my wife was having car troubles with the engine of her old car, and her mechanic convinced her they were going to get worse and advised her to get another car. I thought it could do more years, but she still decided to sell it without even getting a second opinion. Her mechanic is actually a woman, and she trusts her for that reason and thinks she's a great mechanic. So my wife sold her old car and bought a used one that was much newer from a lady. Am I the asshole for lying to my wife as a joke about what AWD means? She bought it because she fell in love with the color and thought it looked cute. It's a fine car and I have no issues with it, but it just seemed like an odd reason to get a car to me. The car has an AWD badge on it, and as we were driving back after she bought it, she asked me why. I joked and said it was something they put on and is a club association of women drivers where they get together and talk about cars and car troubles and help each other. I thought she would realize it was a joke, but she took me seriously, so I didn't say anything and tried not to laugh. When she got home, she Googled it and realized I was joking, but got really upset and called me an asshole. Am I the asshole for shaving my stepdaughter's legs? I'm female 29, married to my husband, male 35, who has a child, female 12, from his previous relationship. My husband and I are currently visiting his daughter in her hometown, and one of the things we did is go to Target. Before going, I asked my stepdaughter's mom what she's allergic to or sensitive to and what she's not allowed to have. My stepdaughter tends to copy what I'm purchasing for myself, so I just wanted to be sure. Her mom said that she's not allowed to have any makeup and that otherwise she's not sensitive or allergic to anything. Fast forward to Target, my stepdaughter really liked a pair of shorts but refused to get them because her legs were hairy. Am I the asshole for shaving my stepdaughter's legs? Her legs are really hairy and her mom doesn't allow her to shave. She's a brunette with really thick hair, and my husband and I were really surprised to hear this. I personally never had any shaving leg restrictions growing up, so we asked around. My sister-in-law, my stepmom, some friends, and everyone said they were allowed to shave their legs. Or at least their mom would help them do it. We had one more activity planned, going to the water park, and my stepdaughter refused that because she was ashamed to wear a swimsuit. But she loves water parks, so I offered to shave her legs and she agreed, and of course so did her dad. My stepdaughter was so happy, but her mom not so much, and she emailed us calling us assholes.
Am I wrong for not attending the engagement dinner my future in-laws threw for me after my fiance hid my engagement ring? My fiance, 31 male, proposed to me 28 female days ago. He has this habit of joking around and pulling pranks from time to time. It bothers me sometimes, but I try to have patience. His family wanted to throw us an engagement party at a restaurant. I heard his mom talk about how expensive this place was and how much money they paid for reservations, so this clearly was a huge deal for them. My fiance and I were getting ready, and I noticed my engagement ring wasn't where I left it before I entered the shower. I freaked out and looked for it everywhere. I asked my fiance about it, and he said he didn't see it. I freaked out and was running out of time for the party. He sat there watching me, almost losing my mind trying to find it, to the point where I started crying because without the ring, I couldn't show up to the party. I kept thinking about what his family would say and how they think I was irresponsible to lose a ring that is somewhat expensive. I gave up looking
When was
and
the
sat
last
down and
time
just cried
you
in
did that?
frustration. Next thing I knew, my fiance was standing in front of me laughing with his hand extended to me with the ring in it. I asked where he found it and he could barely speak and say that he hid it from me last minute before the party as a prank. I was in shock, but I just sort of blew up on him and started yelling, saying that he hid the ring, made me freak out for 2 hours and almost made me miss the party. He was like, "Relax, it was a prank, okay? Don't make a big deal out of it and ruin the evening." I told him I wasn't going to the party and that if his family asked, I would tell them it was because he hid my ring. He freaked out and started begging me to let it go and just go with him, but I refused and went into the bathroom, took my medication, and stayed there. He lost it and kept saying that I blew this out of proportion and that I ruined my own party and cost his family a lot of money and disrespected them by not attending. His family found out and they were mad at him, but also me for choosing to not attend and getting over it, but I was in a horrible state emotionally and couldn't handle being in public after what had happened. So, am I the asshole for choosing not to go after he hid the ring? Am I wrong for pretending not to know my fiance after she had a meltdown during boarding the plane and was eventually thrown off? I imagine I'm going to get raked over the coals for this one. So my fiance, maybe not for much longer, and I were on our way back from a vacation recently. It was a great time and everything went off without an issue. That is, until we started boarding the plane. Now I know better. I only bring a small backpack with essentials in case I don't get my checked bags. I can survive out of this backpack and it will always pass baggage check for size and weight. I've done a lot of traveling, so why fight the system? My fiance didn't want to listen to my advice and chose to bring basically a regular full-size bag that barely fits the standards of a carry-on. But generally speaking, the airline worker doesn't want to deal with the trouble and allows it through. But this time, the airline worker was not happy. It was a packed flight, we were boarding last in economy, and it was just a shit show. I got through just fine first with my little backpack, but I could hear the argument from the boarding tunnel thing and it was getting heated. I was about to go back and try to smooth it out, but my fiance rushed past and just boarded the plane. I assumed, not having heard it super clearly, that the attendant had given in and let her on. That was not the case. So we found our seats and settled in. I was pretty tired and I could tell she was upset, so I kind of just tucked into the window and put my hat down and tried to take a nap. But soon after, the airline worker and a cop shows up and they are not fucking around and want her off the plane. She tries to plead and cry, etc., but they are not having it. And maybe in a moment of panic or just plain self-preservation, the cop asks if we're together and I blurt out, "No," shaking my head empathetically. I got kill daggers from her eyes and she shot up and grabbed her bag and followed the cop out. She was also swearing and screaming the whole way out. Now, obviously, this is well after the event I'm posting this, but when she did eventually get home, she caught the next flight out with the bag checked. I was there to pick her up. She obviously thought I was the asshole, and to be honest, almost everyone I know thinks I'm an asshole except my boss and coworkers, who for context were very much relying on me to get back on time, which I gave my word I would for a really important project that was time sensitive. They were all very happy I didn't get thrown off too. So am I the asshole for this self-preservation? Am I wrong for announcing my pregnancy at my sister's wedding? Announcing it or just telling people like, hey, by the way, I'm pregnant? There's a big difference. I'm 32 and my sister is 28, and we've always been incredibly close. Point in case, she was the first person I told that I was pregnant, besides my husband, of course. I told her essentially a week after I got a positive pregnancy test, which was about 3 months before her wedding. I told her I was going to tell our parents and my husband's parents around the 10-week mark, but she told me that I should hold off until her wedding in September. I never understand people who think pregnancy announcements overshadow your wedding. That is not the case. Like, the world does not revolve around you. Like, ugh. I'd be like 4 months along at that point, so I wouldn't be showing really, and she thought it would be so special for her to be able to make an announcement about a special guest at her wedding, and it'd be her first niece or nephew, and my parents' first grandbaby. Oh, so she's the one who decided to, like, actually announce it at your wedding. That's cute. I like that. I agreed because it seemed like it meant a lot to her, and again, we were super close and I was happy to do that for her. I actually really like that idea. I'm really close with my sister, so like I can see this maybe potentially happening, but never mind, because she's already married and has like 3 kids, so no. Turns out the first trimester was awful with morning sickness and exhaustion. I would have preferred to be able to talk about it with my mom, but I was willing to grin and bear it for my sister's wedding. Well, the wedding came along, and about halfway through the night, I asked her when the announcement was happening. She told me that she changed her mind and that her wedding didn't seem like a good time or place to announce my pregnancy. I was obviously super upset since I went through a really awful first trimester with only my sister and husband to lean on. I decided I wasn't going to put the announcement on hold any longer just for her. So my husband and I pulled my parents aside and quietly told them to keep it private for the evening. They were thrilled, lots of hugs, a few tears, but a very touching and private moment. Literally, no one else found out until I announced it on Facebook a week later. My sister found out about it the same time as my Facebook post when my dad mentioned how we told him about it. And she texted me and called me a bitch who made her wedding about myself. And she hasn't spoken to me since. I've messaged her and apologized probably a dozen times since then, but she refuses to talk to me and now refuses to come see her little nephew who is almost a month old at this point. Listen, you have a happy, beautiful, healthy family. I get that's your sister and stuff, but she is choosing not to be in your life, so don't go ahead and run after people who don't want to be with you. You guys are way too old for this kind of chitter chatter shit to be happening. If she can, I have 6 nephews and nieces, okay? I would never let something like that get in between my nephews and nieces who are essentially like my own kids. So that just shows more on her character than anything else. And I know it hurts as a sister to go through this, but you're good, trust me. My parents and partner think I did nothing wrong since she went back on her word and that I should just wait it out and she'll come around. I'm obviously unsure as clearly this has made her so upset with me and we were so close before. So am I the asshole?